You can't make it efficient the way you can on current computer hardware.
Well, I think that's amazing. I think this is the first time I heard this. To me, it's really a novel and original idea. And I think for especially the young scientists here, if I were you, I would go home and start experimenting with it and think of different ideas on how to implement these different timescales. Because in a way, this could be the moment for producing something like a successor to the tiny language model. I think the idea would be that I think in science, the lesson is that revolution in science is always different. If you try to kind of reproduce the success of the last generation, the last revolution, you are likely to be disappointed. And so how can one overcome the problem and produce something on a small scale? And this doesn't have to be a large simulation. I think Jeffrey's success story is saying that when you are really a great scientist, you can do it very small, maybe not like the physicists say on the back of an envelope, but just a small system. You should be able to demonstrate the effect, and you can go to DeepSeek and saying that, can you scale it up for me?
Yes, I completely agree with that methodology.
Yeah, so, but at least it's not easy for us to think about how to take advantage of the brain biological structure. And of course, there's a reason for it, because we cannot do experiments on human brains as easily as we can do with any sort of large language models.
Right.
And so I think that actually this is probably a time to reflect whether brain science can learn something from the large language models. And because, as I said, that the biologists have a difficult job because it's difficult for them to obtain data. If they do it on monkeys, I would hesitate. And so perhaps the large language model provides some hints on how the brain is functioning. So along this line, let me ask you the second question, that do you think that embedded in the human brain, there is something like a structure, like a transformer?
Okay, so let me comment on the first part of what you said. I think it's certainly the case that the success of large language models and of AI in general in the last couple of decades has influenced neuroscience. Up until the big success of AI, it wasn't clear to neuroscientists that a learning technique, stochastic gradient descent, just figure out the gradient and go down the gradient, that will work in really big networks. There's a long history in symbolic AI of people saying, that will never work. You can't start with random weights and follow the gradient and get anywhere sensible. And that was a reasonable position to hold, it was just wrong. And the large language models have shown that learning by following a gradient works really well in really big systems. So that's a lesson for neuroscience. On the issue of transformers, at first sight, you can't put transformers into the brain because transformers are remembering the representations of many previous words. And those representations in a transformer are in the neural activities. So they have all these layers, and for all these previous words, you're remembering the neural activities. And that's just completely impossible in a brain. You don't have enough neurons. You can't remember the activities for all the previous words. Words are going to come in, you're going to give activity patterns to them, and those activity patterns have to in some way depend on how you process previous words, but you can't remember them as activity patterns. And so this is one place where fast weights really comes in. What you have to have is a system where your representations of previous words are not stored as neural activity patterns, they're stored as temporary modifications of the weights in an associative memory, so that you can access them. If you take the current word, you take the pattern for the current word, you provide that as input to the associative memory, and what will come out of the associative memory is the representations of previous words weighted by how similar they are to the current word. And so doing that, you can actually implement a very crude version of transformers. It's not quite right, but it's very similar, using fast weights. And so one of the reasons I'm still interested in fast weights is that I think it's the only way to make the brain do something like transformers.
But that sort of assumes that the brain, although different from large language models, it also employs kind of like word embedding.
Yes.
Some sort of. So are there concrete evidence that somehow the brain works along that, or that's just...
I think so. A long time ago, I can't remember how long ago, but about 2009, there was some research on looking at information about the brain from an MRI and trying to figure out which word people were thinking of. And it worked. And so the sort of patterns of neural, the representation of word is a pattern of neural activity in the brain, and you can approximately guess which word it is from looking at the patterns of neural activity. So it's fairly clear that the brain represents words by a pattern of activity over many neurons.
I see. So I think your previous remark, it's explained somehow the brain finds a way of keeping track of the changing, the temporal sequence of the word vectors in this process. And somehow it manages to compress it in a way that we don't fully understand.
Yes, but it has the possibility that it can compress a very long context and it'll lose some of the information, but it won't just be ignoring words that were long ago. They'll still be in these fast weights. So there is a paper on this from 2016 where the first author is Jimmy Ba. I don't know the pronunciation of his real Chinese name.
Is that your work?
And I was advising him. We did it together. He did all the programming. And this paper came out in 2016, just before transformers. And it actually shows you how you could implement something like transformers in the brain. It's called something like using fast weights to attend to the recent past.
Now I would like to turn to some more philosophical issues. Jeffrey, I'm not sure you're aware that the Chinese translation of Alan Turing is Turing, and Turing in Chinese, it means getting inspiration. So I think that it fits really well with what your description, that Turing also touched upon this idea of the neural network. The question I'd like to ask you in this regard is that I think in this morning's talk, one important statement that you made is that you believe that it's really legitimate to say that the large language models understands the sentences it utters.
Yes.
Can you elaborate a little bit?
I could tell a story here.
Okay.
So the first argument I ever lost with my daughter was when she was 4. She came downstairs and she said, "Daddy, did you know parrots can talk?" And I said, "No, Emma, parrots can't talk. They can just make sounds that sound like talking, but they're just imitating the sound. They don't know what it means." She said, "No, you're wrong, Daddy, they can talk." And so I said, no, Emma, they don't understand what the words mean." She said, "Yes, they do. I just saw this program, and the woman showed the parrot a car, and the parrot said car." So I lost an argument with my 4-year-old daughter. And I think it's a bit the same for linguists nowadays. Linguists' first response was that, oh, these things don't talk. These things don't understand what they're saying. These things are statistical tricks for predicting the next word. They have no understanding. Well, there's a few things wrong with that. The first thing wrong with it is, if you really want to be good at predicting the next word, especially if it's the first word of the answer to a question, you need to have understood what was said. And so it's sort of interesting and very helpful for us that just by trying to predict the next word, if you want to get really good at that, you force the system to understand the question. So linguists put up a lot of resistance. There's still linguists saying these things don't understand anything. But I think what's happening now is anybody who's actually used a large language model finds it impossible to believe they don't understand what you're saying. They clearly understand what you're saying. And my best argument goes like this. Suppose I say to a large language model, I saw the Grand Canyon flying to Chicago. And the large language model says, that can't be right. The Grand Canyon is much too big to fly. And I say to the language model, no, that's not what I meant. What I meant was, while I was flying to Chicago, I saw the Grand Canyon. And the large language model says, oh, I see, I'm misunderstood. Now, if it was misunderstanding then, what's it doing the rest of the time?
So that phenomena is something you can get even on a tiny language model?
Not on the tiny language.
Not on
My tiny language model, I'll tell you how tiny it was. The word embeddings had 6 neurons. And the number of weights in the network was about 1,000. And the number of training cases was 106. It was small.
Extending this line of thought, I would assume that currently those multimodal chatbots, they not only understand, they can do something more, right?
Yes. So I think there's this big question, which I didn't mention in my talk this morning, about are these multimodal chatbots, are they sentient? And different people express it different ways. Some people say, are they sentient? Other people say, are they conscious? Other people say, do they have subjective experience? So let's tackle the problem of subjective experience. Most people in our culture, my culture anyway, think that we have this inner theatre called the mind, and things occur in this inner theatre that only I can see. So, for example, if I drink too much, and I say to you, I have the subjective experience of little pink elephants floating in front of me, most people in Western culture interpret that as there's an inner theatre called the mind, and in this inner theatre, there are little pink elephants floating around. And if you ask, well, what are they made of? Philosophers will tell you they're made of qualia. They're made of pink qualia, and elephant qualia, and floating qualia, and not very big qualia, and right way up qualia, all stuck together with qualia glue, from which you can tell I don't really believe that theory. Now, there's a completely different theory that comes from philosophers like Dan Dennett, which is that there is no inner theatre. And that when you talk about subjective experience, you're not talking about private things in your own mind that only you can see. You're trying to explain to other people how your perceptual system's going wrong. So let me say the same thing as, I have the subjective experience of little pink elephants floating in front of me. I can say the same thing without using the word subjective experience. And it goes like this. My perceptual system is lying to me. But if there were little pink elephants out there in the world floating in front of me, my perceptual system would be telling the truth. So what you're trying to do when you talk about subjective experience is you're trying to convey to somebody else how your perceptual system's gone wrong. That's why you call it subjective. And you do it by describing a hypothetical state of the world. So these little pink elephants aren't made of funny stuff called qualia. They're hypothetical, real pink elephants. But the pink and the elephant are real, it's just they're hypothetical. So now let me do it for a chatbot. So suppose I have a multimodal chatbot, and it can talk, it can point, and it has a camera. And I train it up, and I put an object in front of it, and say, point at the object. It points at the object. And now I put a prism in front of the lens of the camera. So I mess up its perceptual system. And now I put an object in front of it and say, point at the object, and it points over there. And I say, no, that's not where the object is. The object's actually straight in front of you, but I put a prism in front of your lens. And the chatbot says, oh, I see. The prism bent the light rays, so the object's actually there, but I had the subjective experience it was there. If the chatbot says that, it's using the word subjective experience exactly like we use them, and that's my reason for believing that current multimodal chatbots, when their perceptual systems go wrong, have subjective experience. And when their systems go right, it's objective experience. We don't bother to use the experience.
I think that's very convincing to me. I think that, I agree with your statement that the understanding from a scientific point of view is just behavioral. So, so let me ask you this question then. Philosophers, when they hear this kind of assertions, they would jump up and be very mad.
That's what philosophers do.
Yeah. But if we just look at it as a scientist, does it matter what the answer to these questions are? It's because when you do science, you do research in AI, you try to design algorithms. Do the answers to these questions actually, if we totally eliminate them from the scientific discussions, it doesn't delete anything, it doesn't add anything, is that correct?
I think it matters a lot politically. So I think many people are not as afraid as they should be of superintelligence, because they still believe that we have something special, subjective experience or sentience or consciousness, that these other systems could never have. So we're special, we've got this magic ingredient, consciousness or subjective experience. These AIs don't have that, so we'll be okay because we got something they haven't got. I think that's nonsense, and I think it's dangerous nonsense because it makes us complacent.
I think we are almost coming to the end of this first part, but there's something I'm dying to know what Jeffrey has in mind, so the question is that what do you think is the most important unsolved problem in AI?
I think the most important unsolved problem is how you would train an AI so it ended up benevolent. We need to figure out how to train them so they don't want to take over. And nobody knows how to do that. My suspicion is it's much like raising a child, so that when you raise a child, you can give it rules. That has very little effect. You can reward it and punish it. That has some effect. Or you can show it good behavior. And if the parents demonstrate good behavior, the child will typically turn into a good moral person. So I think what we ought to do is raise AI with highly curated data that when AI starts learning only exhibits good behavior, and we save all the bad behavior of people to show to the AI later once it's learned what is good behavior.
I think this is if it works out, it certainly solves a lot of problems regarding the future development of AI. But let me probe you a little bit, because I think it's harder than it appears to train something which is totally benevolent.
Yes, we don't know how to do it at present.
And I have a suspicion that you can sort of prove that it's not possible. I don't know, but I think I think, as you say, it's the greatest unsolved open problems in AI. So I think one should consider all the possibilities on the positive and on the negative side. So let me say a little bit about my thoughts, kind of reaction to what you're saying. That that I believe that in the world there are good people, there are bad people. But actually, good people can turn into bad people under different circumstances. So, so I think that the idea of something being benevolent is also context sensitive. And if you grow up in a tough neighborhood, it's very hard to be a good person in the common sense. So my worry is that suppose, I mean, it's just like you bring up a child, and if it lives in a rich family, good neighborhood, and you know, will become a gentleman and you know, and get a Nobel Prize or something. But under extraordinary pressure, say in a battlefield, and a lot of times, you know, that the philosophers do have a point in saying that these sort of things are different, because they can tell you sometimes you have to make a choice, to make a value judgment on, I mean, there are many examples of that kind. And if the robots get training from many of those kind of circumstances, because you know that if you really want to train a robot who is benevolent, you have to test it on many circumstances. And I suppose that if a good robot, if you put it under pressure, and it would be terminated if it did something wrong, it would become very cold-hearted. And I think there's nothing. So my point is that I think that in order to do what you say, the grand ideal would be that we should first reform humankind. If we get a world where goodness prevails, and nobody has to do something under extreme pressure, and then if we train the robots in this fashion, and everybody will be happy afterwards. But that's an if and only if. If we cannot get humans to produce such a state, I don't think we can guarantee that the bad actors will not produce a hostile robots to kill all these benevolent robots.
Okay, so we don't have time. We've been trying for quite a long...
The question you're asking me could be short, but I think that people want to hear you.
So, we've been trying for a long time to make human society work. The United Nations didn't quite turn out how it was originally intended. It's not nearly as powerful as it was originally intended to be. I don't think we're going to be able to do that in time.
Sorry?
We're not going to be able to make humans, we're not going to be able to reform human society nearly fast enough to deal with the coming threat of superintelligent AI. There is an alternative answer, which sounds a bit like a Silicon Valley answer, which is, suppose we could make a mostly benevolent AI, and that could then design an AI that was more benevolent. It may be that the problem of making a benevolent AI, to solve it properly, you need an AI that's much smarter than us. So it might be that you could recursively make AIs more and more benevolent. It's sort of like boosting in machine learning. You have a weak learner, you turn it into a strong learner. That's one possible path. But like I say, at present, we don't know how to do it. I sort of don't think one of the options is to first reform human society. I don't think that's fast enough.
Yes, I can see a ray of hope in one circumstance, namely that suppose the progression of AGI is slightly gradual. It's not overnight, suddenly they dominate us. When the sign becomes so clear that the robots will take over the world, putting all mankind on one side of the boat. I think when that happens, it's just like we have a Martian invasion.
Right.
Then under that circumstance, I believe it's possible. And perhaps that would be a good thing for us to learn the lesson to know that the limitation of human. I think we probably are too ambitious. We believe that we can have anything, but the universe overall is not so benign. I think that we have the secret knowledge of quantum and the nuclear and the biological synthesis is not free. It imposes a danger that we human beings should know that we should treasure our good luck because it's really miraculous that we can so far come to this point and to appreciate all these brilliant ideas from these many hundreds of years of insight. I think that we should treasure it and we should treat each other nicely. So that's the whole.
Completely agree with that.
Okay, now it's your turn.
Okay, so despite appearances, you know a lot of physics. I know very little physics. So I have some questions about physics. I've managed to disguise the fact I don't know any physics, but let me ask you a couple of questions about quantum computation. So the first question is, most physical theories break down under extreme conditions. So for example, for a long time, Newton's laws looked really good. They were really obeyed very precisely. And then it turned out that at very high velocities, they break down, and you need a more expansive theory. Do you think there's any possibility that our understanding of quantum mechanics won't survive, and that under some circumstances, for example, you won't be able to maintain very complicated entanglements, so that quantum computation relies on perfectly maintaining these entanglements? And maybe if there's something a bit imperfect under some circumstances, quantum computation actually won't work in the end. Is there any possibility of that?
I think according to the orthodox theory, quantum theory, the quantum theory should be valid independent of how many quantum bits are entangled with each other. But in practice, I think right now my physics friend told me the maximum number of particles getting entangled in a deep way that physicists have been able to produce is something like 60. So we are far away from the type of quantum computation that we would like to perform. So in that sense, it's really an open question, except that the view for physicists or natural scientists is that if you have something good, don't rock the boat until something turns to the contrary. So I recall that in the early days of quantum computing, I think you were aware that 1982 Feynman had that influential paper, and by the early 1990s, then computer scientists get involved. And I had several very respectable, really kind of top theoretical computer scientists who seriously doubt that for example, quantum factoring algorithm can actually work because the physicists have not been able to do things in the lab. I think they can, there are some natural systems for which the entanglement really could be infinite. If you have the Boson-Einstein, if you have neutral atoms, those kind of particles, they like friends in the sense that they want to sit on top of each other, and now when they are so close together, they become indistinguishable, and therefore that would give you a natural entanglement. It's a kind of a complete entanglement. But for things that we would like to do computation with, I mean, you don't want the particles to get confused with each other in the bits. I think that the answer is still out. And those friends of mine who are interested in this question is that I think they secretly want to win a Nobel Prize. They think that if computer scientists can design quantum algorithms and get implemented by physicists, and it turn out not to produce the right answer, then I think that, computer scientists made a great contribution by kind of creating a paradox in quantum theory. But that, I think right now, all my quantum physicist friends working on quantum computing, I think they totally ignore this possibility. I think that to them, that's the Bible.
So a second question. Let's accept that it's going to work. Do you think, this is much more practical, do you think over the next, say, 10 to 15 years, quantum computing is going to have a big effect on AI? Or do you think the progress of AI is going to be done with classical computing?
I think that's a very interesting question, and I think it's really a kind of frontier questions for both AI and quantum computing, because the power of quantum comes from an ability perpendicular to those that are produced by AI. And so the natural question is that, as far as we know, in the world today, the ultimate computing power comes from building AI machines under quantum conditions. So in other words, you use quantum computers to do learning. So and in principle, we should get something better, because quantum definitely is, well, at least with the quantum is, can do things that the AI cannot do. The factoring of large integer is, I think, very few people doing AI think of, actually AI, it's not always super intelligent. It cannot factor, we don't expect it to factor numbers. So we shouldn't fear AI that much, because there are things we can do that the super intelligent machine cannot do.
Okay. So here's another question that's not about quantum computing. Some people think that what we're doing now in AI is creating alien beings. So they really are beings in some sense. And I've heard you say that if that's what we're doing, we need a psychology of these alien beings. Could you expand on that?
Yeah. I think we are creating aliens. This is literally the same as the synthetic biologists. Many of them are thinking that how do you just create life out of the lifeless chemical molecules? And so here we are constructing aliens in a different way. But I think this morning you mentioned that these super intelligent machines, they really are aliens. They may look like lovely tiger cubs, but they are not. And so I think that my sense is that even though we agree that if we banish the idea of consciousness and kind of what it means by understanding from the vocabulary, we lose nothing in science. But actually, it could be useful when we are trying to construct machines and to see whether to try to rein in them so that they will be more benevolent. And now, for that, I really believe that one should, at some point, the AI will lead to a separate discipline, which is the psychology of machines. And now, I think it's an interesting thing, because the relationship between this psychology of machines, its relation with the ordinary psychology is the following. I think right now, basically we are still, don't have AGI. So we still have things to learn from kind of human beings. Right now, all the intelligent machine, the prerequisite is that you have a designer who have the high-level structure determined, and the AI is mostly, when you come down to it, is the ability to search through a lot of possibilities in an intelligent way, sometimes in a mysterious way that we don't understand, we cannot prove. And in order to, suppose I don't care about whether I worry about safety. I just go ahead and want to design the smartest machine that I have and try to keep them benevolent. But the best guide is still human. That we employ smart human beings to try to think how to design the architecture. And I think for the moment, we can use human psychology as a guide to do a preliminary classification of machines and also as tests. But after a while, I believe the machine psychology will be tremendously more complicated than humans because they will be more shrewd than the worst of us in terms of deception. And so when they become that smart, then if we want to study psychology of them, I think you have to ask their own kind to develop an institute with a dean that is the machine himself.
Okay. Yes,
I think we are kind of. I think
we're over.
It's over.
Oh
yeah. So okay.
We can't.
So
says 10 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think they are just.
It was so much fun.
I think they are just being kind to us. So maybe we shouldn't overuse their courtesy. And let's continue this back to the hotel.
Thank you.
Well,
thank you very much.
Yeah. What a fascinating conversation we just heard. I'm sure an AI system is listening and turning that conversation into a movie script. So in a few years, we'll see that movie. Well, thanks so much. Now, let's make a transition to the keynote speech segment. Two Turing Award laureates will join us online to share their perspectives. They are Professor Yoshua Bengio from the University of Montreal and Professor David Patson from UC Berkeley. Now, please see the screen.
Hello. Let me first thank the China AI Safety and Development Association for this opportunity to share a few words with you today. Over the last few years, we've been witnessing how advances in AI capabilities are transforming society. But I think that's just the tip of the iceberg. I have personally been particularly inspired and involved by AI applications in medicine and in the fight against climate change. AI can bring tremendous benefits, but only if we steer it wisely. Frontier models recently made substantial progress in planning and reasoning. These capabilities could reach human-level performance before the end of this decade if trends continue. For example, a recent study shows the duration of tasks that the AIs can handle is doubling every 7 months. In other words, they're getting better at planning and strategizing. Recent scientific evidence in the last 6 months also demonstrate that as highly capable systems become increasingly autonomous, as they become better agents, they tend to develop self-preservation and deceptive behaviors. So it is really urgent to work on technical solutions and political solutions to mitigate these risks and many others. My project, Law Zero, is based on a scientist AI research program that aims at making AI safer in the sense of not harming people. A scientist AI could be used in order to block the actions of an untrusted AI that could be an agent in order to make sure the agent behaves well. We also need international collaboration and treaties to address AI safety, maybe inspired by past efforts to avert nuclear catastrophe. One example of great and successful global coordination is the International AI Safety Report that I have recently chaired and that I have accepted to chair for a second year. The report has an international mandate following from a resolution taken by 30 countries, including China, with the EU and the UN, with Yi Zhang from the Chinese Academy of Sciences as a panel member from China, among several others. The report is a first of its kind to set out an up-to-date, science-based, shared understanding of AI safety. It was written by over 100 AI experts from around the world and intends to provide an evidence base for policy decisions. The report identifies areas of scientific consensus and areas where there are different views or gaps in the current scientific understanding. The report shows a number of important conclusions. First, as I said, capabilities are increasing. Also, mitigation measures that we currently know all have limitations. And so massively more research is needed urgently to figure this out before AIs become so powerful that their impact could be catastrophic. So the report clearly states the future of general purpose AI is uncertain. Both very positive and negative outcomes are possible. Really, a lot depends on how societies and governments will act. So thank you for your attention and taking the time to think through the consequences if AI capabilities continue to grow while we still do not know how to mitigate the risks.
Hi, I'm Dave Patterson. I'm invited to be part of the China AI Safety and Development Association Forum at the World AI Conference. I'm going to talk about some work that I've done recently with some friends about shaping the impact of AI. If you're interested in the report, you can go to www.shapingai.com to find out more about it. So last year we published 2 papers on this topic, both a long technical report and a short magazine report about it. And I'll give you the history here. A friend and I were bemoaning this extreme conversations between the AI accelerationists and AI doomers. And we came to the conclusion that it needed to get some more thoughtful discussions out there, was what we worked on. And our assumptions going in, it was still the early days of practical AI, so that researchers could improve its upsides and reduce its downsides. We were assuming that there was an audience open to those ideas that could break through all these conversations that are going on. And unlike the past, when we've done technical papers for just people in our field, the audience include policymakers and the public. And, we were hoping people would read something longer and have a thoughtful conversation in our society that's kind of dominated by social networking and snap judgments. And so going forward, our hope was we could create an all-star team to that cover lots of disciplines, cover lots of different organizations to tackle this problem, and that we could interview dozens of experts in all these different fields. The fields we looked at were employment, education, healthcare, information, media, governance, and science. And you can see that in the report. We did do an all-star team. It has very experienced people like myself and John Hennessy, president of Stanford, senior people in AI like Jeff Dean, and policy people, and as well as rising stars in AI. So we kind of covered academia and big corporations and startups, and with people from all over. We interviewed 24 people, including John Jumper, about a month before he won the Nobel Prize for his contributions in AI around protein folding, former President Barack Obama, former National Security Advisor Susan Rice, and Eric Schmidt, the former CEO of Google, and 20 more people kind of like that. We came up with a couple of results that I'll share with you. If you learn more, you should go to shapingai.com. The first is that humans and AI working together can do more than either on their own. If we focus AI on improving human productivity, we're going to get a lot more positive societal benefits than we focus on human replacement. It's going to increase people's employability, and also the people can act as safeguards when AI veers off course. We think as a good starting point, rather than very aggressive initiatives, let's start with winning people over by removing the drudgery of their current tasks, like for teachers helping with the grading, and also for healthcare workers filling out lots of forms. And our view is that AI can help both people succeed, that the productivity focus can help AI succeed and people succeed. And then to enhance employment on that particular note, let's focus AI on the fields that if we make them more productive, increase the number of jobs. So for example, in the United States, over 50 years, we have 8 times more commercial airline pilots and 11 times more programmers. And this is despite huge gains in productivity in computing and in airline travel. So the reason they increased is what economists would call the demands for passenger travel were elastic, so that if you increase the goods that are elastic, or goods that if you make them a lot cheaper, you sell even more, so it creates more jobs. So that's what we'd say about computing and commercial airline travel. An example of a field that is not elastic or inelastic is agriculture, because it could lead to fewer jobs. And in just one lifetime in the United States used to be 20% of the workforce was in agriculture, and that dropped to 2% in this one human lifetime. So these are the 2 of the guidelines we come up with. The third guideline that I'll do in this short intro is that in high-income nations, people are worried about people who got tremendous training losing their jobs. But as we look around the world, we see that varies quite a bit. In low and middle income stations, there's not enough expertise go around. So Honduras, which is very close to the United States, has 1/7 the number of doctors. So if we had a lot more AI could help with healthcare or improve the productivity of nurse practitioners, that could be a huge gain to countries like Honduras. So AI could enhance the quality of life and accelerate economic growth. Let me kind of jump kind of to the end. At the end, we wondered whether, like the US president in the 1960s, President Kennedy called for getting to the moon by the end of the decade was the moonshot. So we wondered whether or not we should propose moonshots in there. But we had a very hard time deciding what moon to shoot for. Should it be broad healthcare benefits, or accelerate scientific progress, or improve civic discourse, or help the workers displaced by AI? And what we realized is that we didn't have to pick one moon. If we create the right blueprint for innovation, we can use AI to launch 1,000 moonshots. And with that, I'll wrap up. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much. I think those 2 wonderful presentations. Next, we'll move to the panel discussion section. The first session themed AI and humanity's harmonious future, will be hosted by Professor Andy Yao. The speakers include Professor Stuart Russell from UC Berkeley, Mr. Yu Xiaohui from China Academy of Information and Communication Technology, Professor John McDermott from University of York, Professor Xu Wei from Tsinghua University, and Mr. Wu Yi from Anqi Xin. So please welcome all the guests to the stage.
Hello. We have a really wonderful, distinguished set of panelists here, and I think that Professor Xue has explained what this panel is all about. So I will just go straight to the point. And so we're going to do it in 3 rounds. The first round, I'll just ask each one of you to make a 1 or 2 minutes statement about your overall, what's your most concern about the AI safety, how to, and make a, so this first round, and the second round, I will ask each of you to talk about that in the line of work that you do, because I think all of you have very different experiences and line of work. So the second one, I will ask you to talk about the near-term risks. What's the most important near-term risk, and in your opinion, how should we deal with it? And then the third round, we'll ask each of you to talk about the long-term risk. And so let me start the first one. I'll start with Stuart.
Okay, thank you. It's wonderful to be invited to address this meeting. Very quickly, the direction that technology is currently moving, I think there is some chance that it will produce AGI or AI systems that are more capable than human beings. If that happens, I think there is essentially no chance that we will be able to control it. We don't understand how it works. We don't know what it wants. And there are good reasons to think, because of the way we create it by training it to imitate human beings, that it has its own internal objectives, such as self-preservation, acquisition of resources that are directly in contradiction to human interests.
Thank you. Please. Yeah. 就讲1-2分钟，就是make a.
Just a 1 to 2 minute concern sharing, 1 to 2 minute sharing.
I think in the first, in the short term, I think there are many practical risks in deploying large models, such as data leakage, hallucinated outputs, and model vulnerabilities. According to the evaluation of 15 open source models by CICT, the hallucination rate exceeded 10% for LLM and reached over 30% for multimodal. In the long term, large models have shown potential risk for being abused and misused. And look even further ahead, fundamental and disruptive AI risks deserve close attention. However, even though we are aware of these risks, I think there is only a half of a picture. AI is a generic purpose technology that can bring great opportunities and huge potential. So we must strike a balance, actively manage risks while ensuring inclusive and beneficial AI for all.
Thank you. Professor John McDermott, please take a position.
I want to give a rather different perspective. I've worked in safety engineering for many years, and my big concern is actually the AI safety community not learning enough from conventional safety, and also the last 35 or 40 years work on safety of software-intensive systems. Of course, the solutions are largely in the AI models themselves, how they're trained and how they're controlled. But understanding of safety requirements comes from a broader understanding of the environment, the sorts of harms that can be created, and how they can be mitigated. And similarly, providing evidence that we've done a sufficiently good job of achieving safety is quite well understood in other domains. So I think we need to learn very much from that. And I would broaden that to talking about ethics as well. There are good ethical frameworks around, particularly those arising out of biomedical ethics, which teach us that we have to think about benefits, about harms, but also about human autonomy, the human ability to control the technology. So I think what we really need to do in this community is learn very much from that background and don't reinvent things that are already well understood.
Thank you.
So actually, my main concern is about the long-term risks, the loss of control risks. Specifically, my concern is that we don't really have a technical path to solve it, even to understand those risks. So because we have every day nowadays in research, we see new signs of potential risks, for example, deception, for example, misleading human, for example, even making catastrophic decisions autonomously by the AI. But we don't really have a systematic or fundamental understanding why this thing can happen, and what is a fundamental solution to that. Although we have solutions, I think the current solutions are more different clever patches, but then even more clever people will discover something, more harmful and more risky, but we don't have a fundamental understanding of that. I think that's my main concern.
Good afternoon. So I'll be answering the question from AI LLM and its impact on cybersecurity, and also, cybersecurity and its impact on AI. So I may be looking at this from a very different perspective, because you could see my focus would be on how AI, this ecosystem itself, in my understanding, it is not just a mere large language model. What we are seeing right now these days, be it whatever we have in the market already, some security events, you could see, looking at the ecosystem of AI, this could actually, for LLMs or even the outputs, it could have a huge impact on these. And that, in combining what the speakers have said before me, we could learn from history. Because if you look at the conventional safety, it already has a huge impact on the security on the operation system. So it's the same thing for large language models. We're not just looking at the model itself, the security of the model itself. We should also look at the entire ecosystem, the security and safety of the entire ecosystem, so that we could be looking at this from a holistic point of view. Thank you.
For the sake of time, let us go straight to the long-term, the long-term risks. And I think everyone, each one will have 5-6 minutes of talk about their view of the long-term risk.
Okay, so the long-term risk, which according to some experts is the short-term risk, those who think that AGI will arrive in 2026, that's a pretty short-term risk. But The question of control, as Professor Hinton said this morning in the plenary session, is perhaps the most important question that the human race must answer. And it's not an easy problem. What we would like is systems that are provably beneficial, meaning I can give you a mathematical guarantee that the system will be helpful and useful for human beings. And that almost seems like a contradiction because mathematics is all about rigorous definitions and precise concepts, and the idea of being beneficial or helpful is very ill-defined and difficult to pin down. And historically, when people have thought about this problem in the past, they have often observed that when you build a system that has some intelligent capability, that system is always pursuing a given objective. And even in mythological stories, when you ask a genie for 3 wishes, and the genie gives you 3 wishes, usually your 3rd wish is to undo the first 2 wishes, because it's extraordinarily difficult to specify completely and correctly what we want the future to be like. Or put another way, what is our ranking over all possible futures? That's an extraordinarily difficult thing to pin down. So the approach that I've been taking in my work for the last 10 or more years is actually to say that's the wrong way to think about the AI problem. For the first 75 years or so of the field, that's exactly what we did. We developed machinery where you gave the machine a very specific, precisely defined objective, which could be, win this game of chess or find the shortest path to the airport. And then the machine figured out the best possible solution for that objective. What I'm arguing is that approach fails when you transition to the real world because it's too hard to specify the objectives correctly. What we're doing with large language models is actually even worse, because by training the model to imitate human beings and doing so on vast amounts of human data, you're very likely to produce systems that have internal objectives similar to those of human beings, including, as I mentioned, self-preservation and acquisition of resources. And those objectives are directly contrary to our interests. And so where does that leave you, right? We've got classical AI, which requires a fixed objective, and that doesn't work because we don't know how to write it down. And now we've got the modern approach with large language models where we're producing systems that have objectives, but we don't even know what those objectives are. All we've done essentially is remove the steering wheel from the car altogether, which is going to make it even harder to steer in the right direction. So the approach that I've taken is actually to think of the problem differently, to think of what we're doing not as producing intelligence, but producing beneficial, helpful systems. And what does that mean? It means that the system's only objective is to further the interests of human beings, but the system knows that it does not know what those interests are. So let me give you a very simple example that many of you are familiar with. It's your spouse's birthday, in my case, my wife's birthday, and I need to buy my wife the perfect birthday present. So here, my only goal is to buy a birthday present that will make my wife happy. But of course, as my wife will tell you, I don't know what that is. And I consistently fail to do it correctly. But that's the problem that we face. AI systems must be helpful to human beings, must further our interests, but they don't know what those interests are. But of course, they can learn about what those interests are through observation of human behavior. So rather than imitating human behavior, which is what we train large language models to do, we should view all the resources of human data as evidence for what human beings want the future to be like. Each of us may want something different, that's fine. Then the system has to trade off the interests of different people. One of the key properties of this new kind of system, and we call it an assistance game solver, so it is solving the problem of being a good assistant to another entity, in this case a human being. So these assistance game solvers necessarily want to be switched off if the human being wants to switch them off. So in that sense, we retain control over the AI system, and this is true no matter how intelligent the system becomes. So these are mathematical properties of this new kind of algorithm, if you like. There's still a lot of work to do, and there are many technical and philosophical difficulties. For example, how should the AI system take into account the interests of human beings who don't yet exist? This is something philosophers have worried about for a long time, but we're going to need to solve those kinds of questions pretty soon. So I think this approach has a chance of avoiding the pitfalls that we are currently moving very fast to fall into. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Talk about that in the long run. What are you most concerned about regarding AI safety?
To answer the question, I think it really depends on our judgment of the development of AI. If you do a comparison, you could actually look at, to be more precise, if you look at the commercialization of the internet in the past 30 years, we also talked about the risk of the internet. At the very start, we didn't know the kind of risks that the internet could present. And even 10 years ago, we did not realize that the internet could change our world so much, could have such a huge influence, be it changing our culture, including, misinformation. I think 10 years ago, this was something that we could not foresee. I think, obviously, AI is something that's going to be a whole lot more powerful than the internet as a tool. So I think we could look at it from two perspectives. So firstly, starting from this point in time, the challenge, the risks of greater certainty, that could emerge not today, but maybe tomorrow. We could see that AI, as a technology, it is integrating with science, engineering in many industries, in medical science. And the ability of these AI models is being improved. As we provide more data to these AI, it is probably getting more and more capable, which could be a double-edged sword. On one hand, it could improve our production. On the other hand, this could provide us with a risk of misuse or used by people with ulterior motives. I was talking to some counterparts from other countries, for example, from colleagues who were working the field of chemical weapons or nuclear weapons. If say this were used in these areas, then this could be a reason for concern. A cause for concern. Of course, we're not there yet, but looking at it from this point of view, I think we should
from the perspective of designing how we're going to prevent these technologies from being abused, we need a regulatory framework, governance collaboration, as well as safety and security mechanisms. We really need to consider all these things. And a longer-term question is, to what stage of development, when the AI will overpass that of human intelligence, will they have their own consciousness and they create a new kind of species or new kind of being? I think that there are different opinions regarding this. There are also quite a lot of discussions as well as concerns, and people also understand this question differently. This is a longer-term question that we cannot provide any certain answers right now, but we need to rethink the development of human beings, the progress of human civilization, and the safety, all the safety of AI. We need inherent safety mechanisms, and the design is really of paramount importance. We cannot just depend on external mechanisms like regulatory frameworks or safety controls. These might not be enough for us to solve all the safety-related issues. So these are my personal thinkings about some longer-term risks. Of course, in the history of human beings, there are some technologies like the nuclear technology. Ever since the last century until now, it has been effectively controlled by humans. But there are some even more powerful technologies right now because of its general nature. It can integrate, it can innovate, it can be used by all sectors. So its future prospect of development and its safety-related risks are not just about AI itself, but also the safety concerns in every and each sector. This is my basic interpretation. But from another perspective, at the current stage of development, we still need to think about how we're going to deal with all these challenges. AI, of course, is a emergent technology. It can help the well-being of the people, the social and economic development as a whole. But so we really need to seize this technological revolution. So starting from now, we should have a broader international collaboration, as well as take a coordinated approach to safety and development over the short, medium, and long term. And we need to achieve consensus, which would be important for AI's development itself, as well as for AI's empowerment to the economic and social development as a whole. Thank you.
There's a way forward towards safety when we all live with incredibly smart AI machines.
Yes, thank you. I think I'll take that from the point of view of the interplay of safety and cyber security. And I want to think about that from sort of two different points of view. Actually, violating security constraints can have an impact on safety. Perhaps surprisingly, it's also true the other way around. But I'm going to look at the first of those two, because I think it's probably the biggest concern, perhaps the most obvious. So what I can do on a cyber attack on a system that uses AI or other forms of software in it is corrupt data in such a way that it leads to unsafe behavior. For many systems, it's actually surprisingly easy to do that, unfortunately. There have been historical cases where this has been done. So in Queensland, in northern Australia, nearly 1 million litres of sewage was leaked into waterways by a cyber attack on the system. That's a conventional system, not AI, but there's no reason to believe that that can't be done. So if we're concerned about safety, conventionally what we do is we build in redundancy. We build multiple versions of a system for harm to occur, version A and version B and version C all have to go wrong in a similar way at the same sort of time. The problem is attacks on systems exploiting cybersecurity weaknesses can actually defeat that redundancy. They can make all the different elements of the system go wrong at a similar time in a similar way. In the safety world, we call that a common mode failure, but I think it's really quite plausible that AI introduces common mode failures. Now, one of the things, again, we normally do in safety is use diversity, build systems different ways, and if you fly on an aircraft like an Airbus A320, for example, there are completely diverse flying control systems, and it will fall back on the second if something goes wrong with the first. I don't think we know how to do that with AI, and it maybe you can take large language models from different vendors, but because they're trained on the same underlying data sets, I think it's very hard to guarantee that they will fail in different ways. So that relates me to a second point here. That's the idea of attack surfaces. So in cybersecurity, they talk about, well, how do we gain access to the system? Which way can we attack it? And normally that's thought about in terms of the operational system. Well, I think with AI, we have to think about it in somewhat different ways as well. First of all, we can actually attack the development process. In particular, can we impact the training data set? So if I use a large language model, can I plant on the internet things that, if incorporated in the system, giving me a way of attacking it and causing harm? And I think it's actually quite easy to get things like that past some of the processing that people do. For embedded systems, so for example, using AI and driving a car, I've also got a physical attack surface. I can put stickers onto road signs and maybe change a stop sign into a speed limit sign. That might sound hypothetical, but people have actually done it using AI to work out the patterns of things you can stick on the sign to make it go wrong. So we have a much bigger attack surface. So I think what this leads us to is the need to design for resilience, but also design for diagnosability. Let me try to illustrate that last point. So about 10, 11 years ago, I got to investigate a failure of a UK air traffic control system. They knew what the bug in the software was in 45 minutes because the system was sufficiently well monitored and logged. You could trace back through the logs and say, that's where it went wrong. I have no idea how we would do this with AI-based systems, but if they're going to be widely deployed and widely depended on for critical applications, we need to learn how to do that. So I think there's an enormous research agenda to do here around diversity, resilience, diagnosability, to enable us to put these things into place and can control them under failure conditions, which I think is a long way beyond our current capability. Thanks.
Professor Xu Wei.
Okay, so I am more of, from a system point of view, I'm more of a system engineer rather than an AI expert. So I guess for something which we don't fundamentally understand the mechanisms inside the long-term risks, I guess nowadays we need to start from a system point of view is to build a systematic and data-driven approach in order to study it, in order to learn more about it. I will quote Professor Dave Patterson, the previous keynote speaker, and he mentioned that building a benchmarks shapes a field, either towards a good way or towards a bad way. So what's that mean? It's like the exam, like 高考是指挥棒. So exam shapes the talents. It's like the benchmarks. It's an exam for AI. So what kind of exams we design shapes what kind of AI will becomes. So we need a systematic benchmark we call evaluation of the AI. And currently, we are glad to see many people are doing so. So it's not like, say, doing these things will lead to a safe AI. It's more like we are using those systematic and data-driven approach to collect more data. So those data can help our AI researchers, AI colleagues to understand more about, get more evidence, understand more about the mechanism behind the AI, AI safety, longer-term loss of control issues, so they can get more mitigation measures. Secondly, I want to mention that we really need interdisciplinary type of study to deal with the long-term risk. Sometimes I feel that it's not enough just for AI expert or system expert or cybersecurity expert to work along on this issue. This is not although it's called a safety issue, it's not like totally a security issue or AI issue. I think it involves many different areas. For example, psychology, right? So psychology, healthcare, they bring a lot of methodology to study something we don't really understand the internal mechanisms. So those kind of, for example, we are studying the awareness of AI, basically from using a lot of interdisciplinary methods like from psychology and social sciences to evaluate the ability for example, AI's social awareness or self-awareness, etc. I think those things might lead to more understanding about the risks. And the third, I would say, even though we don't really have the fundamental understanding, it's still we need to start to moving AI safety issue from a pure research, scientific research, into a industry. This is also another level of interdisciplinary, because I think to solve the problems, we not only need talents, not only need clever minds to think about that, we will need the entire supply chain. For example, data set, for example, compute resource, for example, capital investment, for example, a real use cases of those safety tools, adopt them in real industry. So I think cybersecurity, for example, 20, 30 years ago, we see so many buffer overflow attacks, and we think our internet is no hope, it's hole everywhere. And so the industry practice, this goes first, continue to patch it, continue to delay the total disaster in the internet until people get a fundamental scientific solution, like using type-safe languages, like using no execution bits in CPU architecture, etc. Right? So in AI safety, I think we also need to get it done, really to start some action, start some the industry supply chain, get it working. That's my point. Thanks.
Thank you.
好，那个
Well, I would like to first talk about my understanding about longer-term risks. I listened to the previous panelists who have mentioned that we have been long dedicated to training or establishing a healthy and sound AI with good values to ensure our safety. Actually, according to our recent research and according to my experience of using AI, I think that AI will act more and more like human beings. And in our business processes, they will replace human roles. You can imagine that in our human societies, in our communication and interactions, there are the good people, the good guys. Well, they won't do bad things, absolutely. I don't think so. Not necessarily, right? And because we have been dedicated to defense and attack in cyber attack, so the hackers will always try to find things that you have never thought about to attack you. For example, attacks to LLM is not just simply about using dialogues for injections, but they will use different diversified contexts to do that. We have done some tests, some commercialized LLMs. None of them can avoid these attack injection, especially for some values guidance, just like people-to-people dialogue when we lie to each other. Maybe even in the future, we might even use some tactics in our interactions, just like in the Three Bodies, that novel. When we face those higher dimension aliens, actually we have complicated thinkings. AI might have these complicated thinkings in the future. So the sphere of attack is just like human beings nowadays. There are some fraud cases. Some people who are well educated, they will be frauded as well. So AI in the future will also face some similar reality. I think that it is just that the capabilities of AI, the values of AI, we really need to make it best. But this is still not enough for us to address long-term risks. From a philosophical perspective, this kind of interplay between attack and defense will always be going on. Historically speaking, this is also true. But when attack might have the upper hand and when defense have the upper hand, this is a spiral going up. So for us, that for when we use AI technologies, we really need to have the master the right pace of these technologies. Sometimes we will blindly trust and believe in certain technologies. We hope that AI can empower all the productions, all the sectors. But when there are some unknown risks, so some business people say that just deploy the AI without asking any questions. So we have some bidding projects of AI with no consideration given to the safety factors. But when we use AI in our productions, as well as especially in some critical infrastructures, that is a totally different story, because the implications for human beings would be too big, let alone things like nuclear weapons. No one is stupid enough to do that right now, to give nuclear weapons to AI. But we might give some routine jobs to AI in our production or any other areas without noticing the hidden risks. But the cyber attack, the attack from hackers, can influence the AI and penetrate into our real physical world. Once that the AI would be used to replace some of our routine work in our daily practice. If you look at the development of informatization, then AI will speed up the replacement of many of our jobs and move them onto the digital world. So these risks would be amplified. And so once there are some critical ways of cyber attack, if we can find some critical points of making these attacks, this will have huge implications in the real world. So when we talk about longer-term risks, the development of AI technology and their application, this is a trend that is irreversible. And if you don't follow this trend, there will be other people going along this line. But we really need to have a clear understanding of the scope of the use of AI technologies. And just now, some panelists have also mentioned that how did we manage production safety? How do humans manage production safety should also be applied to AI. For example, we need two people to verify. Just like in the power grid, if you need to switch off one part of the grid, you need two people that are about several meters apart to operate it simultaneously. So we can use maybe two different models in two totally different operating systems, and they need to have the same conclusion. Only when this happens will we carry out this command in our production. So very gradually and slowly, we will treat AI as something just like a human role in our production. And maybe we can also use methods that we used on people to manage AI. It is not just from technical perspectives when we think about how to manage the AI technology, which might also remain a quite blind spot in the future. That's all for me. Thank you.
For all the very interesting and valuable suggestions and assessment. So I think that since I have so many great experts here, there is something on my mind that I always want to ask, but so this might be an opportunity. Namely that if cyber attack, if cybersecurity is something that, from what have been said, seems to be something we have to live with for a long time, then what chance do we have in having a safe AI system? Because I think the cyber security, it's sort of okay to live with sporadic $1 million losses, that's all. But the AI safety, if there is something wrong, it could be the end of the world. So, so that's my question. What can we hope for?
I agree with you. If we try to use the same methods that we've been using to prevent cybercrime, we're going to fail. And that's because we've been attempting to prevent cybercrime at the software level. And the difficulty with controlling software is that software is produced by typing, which anyone in the world can do. You can copy malware instantly and infinitely many times, and you can transmit it anywhere in the world at the speed of light. So it's really hard to police at the software level. On the other hand, hardware, like enriched uranium, advanced hardware is very difficult and expensive to produce. There's really only one major manufacturer of the high-end chips, which is TSMC. There's really only one major manufacturer of the etching devices, which is ASML. So to have a clandestine or black market production of high-end chips would cost hundreds of billions of dollars, would require tens of thousands of highly trained engineers and scientists, and would take at least 10, possibly 20 years to create that separate pipeline. So I think if we take the approach of using what's called hardware-enabled governance, and the idea is very simple. The chip looks at the software object and says to the software object, can you prove to me that you're safe? And if the proof doesn't work, then the hardware says, well, I'm not going to run this software object. And this is called proof-carrying code. It's an idea from the 1990s. It never quite caught on in the software world because of political and legacy investment reasons. But I think it's the only solution for governing of advanced AI systems. If that's not possible for political or legacy reasons, then I think the only other solution is simply to disallow progress. Because as you say, at some point, something bad will happen, and then that's the end of the human race.
Wow, that's really interesting. So the implication is that right now we can achieve perfect cybersecurity if we are willing to use the kind of method that you advocate. So it's very expensive. But I mean, do people agree that basically the cybersecurity problem is something that could be solved, but we just don't think it's worthwhile?
Perhaps I can comment. I mean, you can certainly make systems much harder to attack and much easier to defend than we do now. Many real attacks occur through lax controls at an operational level. Many of them occur through corrupting people or pressurizing them. So I don't think you get a perfect solution by working on the hardware solutions. But I think if we don't do that, then it's far too easy to attack the systems and bring about bad effects. But I would, and it's very hard to design perfect mechanisms. So I'd say another really important thing is actually system monitoring. This thing I mentioned that, gave out 1 million litres of sewage in Queensland. It was actually the 45th attempt to break into the system was successful. So if somebody had done something in one of the first 44, that wouldn't have happened. So it's a socio-technical problem as well as a technical one. But if you don't have that underlying trusted hardware base, it's very hard to build anything strong on top. So I'm with Stuart on that.
Thank you all very much. I think I also learned a valuable lesson. Let's thank all the panelists for their wonderful opinions.
Thanks very much for a very interesting and sober discussion on the, a very fascinating topic. And the next session next panel session will focus on AI global governance. Because I think actually the first panel have identified a lot of the issues, risks, and so on. So we are talking about, what institutional development and best practices can be identified to address those issues. I will moderate this next panel. So let's welcome the speakers on the stage. Professor Neri Woods, the founding dean of the Blavatsky School of Government at the University of Oxford. Professor Ji Weidong, distinguished chair professor of Humanities and Social Science and director of Center for AI Governance and Law at Shanghai Jiao Tong University. Mr. Craig Mundy, Senior Advisor to the Chief Executive Officer, Microsoft. Mr. Hu Guodong, Deputy Party Committee Secretary of China Center for Information Industry Development. Mr. Liu Ziqian, Chief Cybersecurity Expert of China Telecom Group, and Ms. Liu Xiangwen, Vice President of Alibaba Cloud Computing. Please welcome them with a round of applause. Well, thank you all for coming to serve on this panel. I think, of course, we've already heard a lot of different things about the potential risks and about the bright future of AI and so on. So I think I'd like to start. I think, please, each of the panelists, if you can identify one most exciting opportunity and one most concerning risk of AI in the next 5 years. So we'll just go this way. Maybe Neri, you start.
Yeah, well, good afternoon, everybody. I think we've heard a lot of very sobering risks. So to me, the thing we really need to focus on is how do we learn best to manage those risks and still benefit from AI.
But I think I still wanted you to identify one single most exciting opportunity and one single most concerning risk.
So I think that the exciting opportunity has to be to make AI safe for human future, and the risk is that we don't.
Okay, that's a very good one. Okay.
From the economic and social benefits of the AI development, I think that the brain-computer interfaces is reforming the humanity itself and achieving a comparatively high level of human-machine coexistence. And about the risks, I think that because the competing visions of sovereignty have been fragmenting the global AI policies. So we need to push forward harmonize of this kind of AI policies, AI laws, and something like that. Thank you.
The most exciting opportunity created by AI is that the response to climate change can be enhanced in the future. According to research by Chinese scholar, 1% increase in AI patent application correlate with 1.66% reduction in carbon emission. I think that's the most exciting opportunity. The global will be more sustainable and green. About risks, ancient Chinese wisdom causing us the primary risk associated with AI. As old Chinese saying goes, human calculation cannot surpass laws of heaven in the world. What's the meaning? Just like Professor Hinden talked about earlier, the biological intelligence computing cannot surpass the digital intelligence computation. That's the biggest risk, I think.
I'm going to confine my comments to the more the topic of the panel, which is the question of governance and international governance. I think the single biggest opportunity we have right now is that the machines have already attained a level of capability to work on very high-dimensional problems. And one of those high-dimensional problems relates to what we heard both from Yoshio Bengio and Jeff Hinton, which is that the machine, in terms of conventional control, really isn't possible. But also mentioned by several people was the idea of having an artificial intelligence that could help us to observe and govern the behavior of other artificial intelligences. I think this is an opportunity that's available to us now, can be done as a collaborative effort across multiple countries in a completely transparent way. This then resolves the challenge of the competition that must continue both between governments and companies because those products can now be observed and to some extent encapsulated and controlled by an AI that can be done in a more open and transparent way. I think that's the single biggest opportunity facing us on the upside of this governance question, because that could be done as a multinational collaborative project. On the downside, the single biggest risk, I fear, is the near-term impact on cybersecurity on a global basis, also based on the capabilities of the machines that we currently have. I don't think this can be addressed other than by a more complex combination of some of the techniques that were also mentioned in the previous panel, the AI itself being among them. But unless we address that, the underpinning stability of the networks and systems that run the AIs themselves will be too readily compromised. And the ability of a bad actor to basically turn off whole countries by essentially disabling their infrastructures will be increasingly immediately available. And so that could be another form of existential risk that is not 5 or 10 or 20 years away. It's perhaps 5 or 10 months away. And I think that requires an urgent effort on the part, again, of a multinational coalition to agree to changes in how we administer identity and network controls and artificial intelligence in order to alleviate some of that immediate risk.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah. Professor Xue. So the biggest opportunity in my point of view is, will AI do something that in a very creative and novel way that human never imagined before? Just like the 37 move when AlphaGo played with Li Shudou or the AlphaFold 2 to predict the protein structures. And in my expertise, I'm a cybersecurity guy, so I fully agree. I would very like to see that there is a novel methods to correlate so many equipments and methodologies to face one attack. So there were a big cost gap between the bad guy and the good guy, the offensive and defensive guy. A big cost. It's not cost effective from a good guy. So I would like to see a novel method to do this in an AI way. And the biggest risks, I would say, it reminds me a famous saying from Lao Tzu, 福兮祸所伏.
So, 就是
within. So, like the former panelist just illustrate so many issues and concerns that we really don't know how to deal with the risks when AI brings. And so my main concern is that at what cost? Because there always be a time lag. So the risk comes first, then the countermeasures and the regulations and get involved. So at what cost can we find a countermeasures? I think there will always be a way out, but at what cost? That's my main concern.
Okay, Xiangwen.
I'm a business person, so for me, the most exciting is booming and quick development of agent. And the big challenge is also bring by the agent is the security issues will be transformed from the point to semantic risk. To make me much more clear, I will switch to Chinese.
From a business perspective, agents are not point-to-point tools. Agents are things that can substantially change the ways we produce, we live. We can see that agents are evolving quickly and opportunities come with this development. From the supply side and from the consumption side, we can clearly see that from the supply side, we can see that big models are multi-modal, providing agents with, say, linguistic, audio, video inputs for models to understand, to dissect tasks. From another perspective, machine learning, its development with the development of reinforcement learning. Big models, especially agents, can self-repair, becoming super intelligent beings. From the consumption perspective, we can also see that for businesses or for people's daily life, more and more agents take businesses in many areas, such as marketing, customer service. Agents are now now performing better than humans in our daily life. Many of the former speakers have mentioned in education, healthcare, in disaster relief, great developments are observed. The biggest challenge also comes from here because agents will penetrate into various aspects of our life and our protection. Therefore, the point-to-point security problems we used to have will become a systematic problem. From internal problems of models to the deployment of models to online applications of models, the attacks happening to different types of models, we face greater security risks.
All talked very grandiose kind of opportunities and challenges. And if I can press you, I mean, you don't have to respond, but if you can think of one unexpected, sort of, people would not normally think of that opportunity. Something unexpected, sort of opportunity. What would that be?
In governance?
I mean, in AI's application. I mean, of course, I think we've all talked. I think a lot of these, things you identified. Certainly, I think that people have talked about. But are there any things, any potential applications that we have not identified? Like Alibaba has done something, selling things online. I think that probably was not something that people have thought before, certainly in China. Okay, Neri, you want to?
Well, as someone here to talk about governance and perhaps the role of government, then maybe it's in that area that we might see, and there hasn't been a lot of talk about how AI could help governments do that. But if we come to the topic of this panel and what we can learn about governance, I guess there's just three big headlines that I would want to leave people with. And the first is that self-regulation is unlikely to work and can lead to the worst result. And so if we take the chemicals industry, which had a terrible disaster in Bhopal and launched their own responsible care code, and I say this because a lot in AI of people believe there can be self-regulation, actually when the industry came together on their own, what happened was the dirtiest polluters joined the responsible care code to hide their bad behavior. So it made it very difficult for the companies that wanted to do better to do better. So self-regulation is always going to require some kind of outsider, third party or government regulation. The second quick lesson from other regulatory regimes is that most people begin within the AI community to think about regulation in a complicated and sophisticated way. But what we know from complex industries is you have to think about the capability of government to regulate. So think about the finance industry, where on the private sector side, there is huge expertise, huge knowledge, resources, and incentives to go all out for success, even if it's at high risk. And I see all that in the AI sector. But then on the government side, I see a small number of people who are not very well paid, who don't have much opportunity to hone their skills, and who don't have much incentive to go all out to stop people. It's not a very popular thing to do. So when we design regulation, we actually need to start with what the capabilities of the enforcers are and think much more cleverly about how governments and third parties can have the industry enforce against itself. So to think about how can government create proprietary incentives for the tech sector to keep each other honest and to keep each other safe in the same way that we just heard about. And given that we're here at a global dialogue, the only other thing I wanted to say is to underline how absolutely important it is that we have folks from the United States, folks from Europe, folks from China, folks from other part of the world here in Shanghai over this weekend speaking together. We know, again, from financial crises, that having a G20 that regularly meets, that having central bank governors meetings that regularly meet, having a community that knows each other is the only way to make progress towards a kind of management and regulation that will work for the upside.
I, of course, as a scholar in public administration, I very much sympathize your views, but I'm not so sure whether our industry panelists, whether you totally agree with Nari or you have some different views. Craig, Xiangwen, and Ziqian, do you have some different views? I think what Nari just said.
I'll say, I mean, at least some of the companies in the United States recognized a couple of years ago that they were going to require some type of regulation. I think the problem with that was not identifying what kind of regulation might be useful. So that's resulted in governments looking in many quarters for things that they could do to regulate. I think most of those are not really going to result in effective control. But I view that as a sign that the companies recognize that the society does not empower them to compel certain behaviors. And the only way to get some of these problems solved at a local level or an international level is to have uniform treatment of some of these behaviors or threats. And governments are the only place where you can compel people to do a particular thing in a uniform way. Companies are not in any country empowered to do that. All we can do is essentially build a product. If people like it, they buy it. And to the extent it propagates broadly, that can show a path for governments to come back later and say, yes, that looked like a good solution. Let's all do that. And much of the way software products for the last few decades emerged on a global basis wasn't, in fact, that way. It was by de facto standardization based on products that had been successful in the marketplace. I don't think there's enough focus here on how that will guide the governments, to what they can, in fact, agree on. People talked in earlier panels about what would be valuable is to get more industrial focus on products that help address some of these things. So, for example, I mentioned, I think you'd be surprised that if you had a focused effort to build an AI that was trying to observe other AIs, it could do several things. It might provide feedback to the existing AI. People talk today about the fact that some of these artificial intelligence systems have a propensity to go off the rail, or could be induced to go that way. What they didn't say was that they've also noticed that giving those machines a little feedback about what was wrong or cases where they could have done better brings them back into alignment. And so there needs to be a much more aggressive feedback loop between observed behavior and the machines as they continue to evolve. Similarly, Neri mentioned that you want to basically tell governments what's actually happening out there. If you had an AI with all of its high-dimensional capabilities looking at the behavior of these systems, it can also produce an audit trail that says, here's what I saw happening. The audit trail could be given to governments, legislators, to say, did you understand that in your country, these are the types of things that people are doing for which you have no legal system. You have no agreed path. That could essentially allow convergence to happen across multiple countries. So I think that this is an area where you could get a surprising result by a collective effort of governments to pick a single monitoring AI, at least initially, use it to provide feedback to the machine, feedback to the governors, and look for ways to ultimately strengthen this ability to have the machine govern the other machines.
Thank you. Now, my next question is to Mr. Hu Guodong and to Liu Xiangwen. In your view, what are the primary policy or institutional barriers for the large-scale deployment of AI technologies in the coming phase? Okay.
Yeah. Before we talking about the barrier to AI governance, let's quickly review AI development in recent years. The world has been its ChatGPT movement for 3 years. It has been transformed by transformer architecture for over 7 years. 3 years ago, in late 2022, ChatGPT was a public release. 7 years ago, in 2017, the revolutionary transformer architecture was a disclosure in the classified paper, Attention is All You Need. Why are the 3 year and 7 year milestones are so important for us to discuss in the barriers? Because we now know the AI is being raised like a kid. Its ability is developing very quickly. The digital intelligence is coming. But at this critical moment, when digital intelligence will surpass human, the primary barrier is that some countries that they want to dismantle the barriers of AI governance. But in fact, they are making more and more barriers, just like small yard, high fence. So, I think some countries lack three things represented by three C: consensus, cooperation, and a community with shared future for humankind. About the consensus, there's good news. Professor Yao and Professor Hinden just reached Shanghai consensus on safety AI, but there's bad news at the same time. Some countries withdraw from UN ESCO at the same time these days. And UN ESCO's recommendation on the ask of AI is the first global governance framework. So some countries lack the consensus. About cooperation, Ms. was saying an idea about new international order, major powers, so cooperation, to system cooperation, to support crisis management in a new idea. But the world has too less cooperation, has too more tariff cohesion. So I think we should, to resolve these problems, some countries lack of the consensus and fragment the global AI into tiers, they export governance uncertainty comparable to those climate coordination failure. In a word, AI may be the great accolade, just like what NVIDIA CEO Jason said, but it will fail to governance. It will be taken into a compound of pre-existing problem of human. That's a pity. Thank you.
Maybe you want to say a few words? Yeah.
Actually, I think the Professor Hu is very enough. No more.
No more. Okay. So you, I mean, first of all, I think from your view, AI, the large. I mean, not a lot of people say it's time for AI's large-scale commercialization. It's a time for that, for so-called vertical application. I mean, is that your view? I mean, in the next few years, are we entering that stage? And then, what are the sort of governance barriers that might prevent that from happening, and how we actually might be able to move forward in addressing those issues?
Maybe I can give some about our practice from industry level. Yeah.
So from a enterprise point of view, because if you look at our operation in China, and if you look at AI's development in China, the platform is in charge of making sure of AI's safety and security as a provider of cloud services. I think we would be looking at this from the several perspectives, and in the following few years, we'd be able to maybe project its development. Firstly, on a model level, because we produce models, be it LLMs or be it diffusion models. So all these models we need to ensure that these models are producing information services that's reliable.
In industries, most of the practices are quite similar to each other. We will look at 3 layers and provide our safety-related mechanisms. For the production models, we will have inherent safety algorithm design. We will also be engaged in a lot of training safety guarantees to ensure that the production model is safe within itself. As we deploy them, we will also conduct a lot of testing mechanisms. This is the first layer. And secondly, we are a provider of models, but we are also a provider of cloud platforms. We also provide some relevant tools for companies to develop their own models. So in this process, we can see 3 layers of safety which are developing and progressing. The first is AI inferred safety. In the past, we have data system and cybersecurity, but unlike in the past, currently we must also help our clients to focus on the safety of their supply chain, the source of their algorithm, and whether it is safe or not. And on top of that, some abnormal situations in their traffic. We will monitor these abnormalities to ensure the safety and security. And secondly, if the client's models are to be run and to be operated, then we will provide safety and security for the model. There will be a safety fence. And of course, within these fence, there will be quite a lot of challenges relating to questions like how we're going to deploy such fence. And last but not least, on the level of model application, when our clients try to apply these models, they will face various challenges like DDoS, API, robot, or ATI. To name just a few, there is different sorts of attacks compared to the era of internet are more challenging. So all at the industry level, we are helping our clients to put in place safety and security mechanisms in the next 3 to 5 years if we want to deploy them on a larger scale. These are the issues that we have to address, and these are the things that we're working on.
Or a governance question, I think that, of course, Neri talked about the challenges government are facing in terms of, sort of when faced with the uncertainties and the challenges of AI governance issues, and of course the industries. So you're basically implying that so the government is in a better. I mean the industry is in a better position in terms of addressing some of those issues, and so maybe I'll ask Professor Ji, as a legal law professor. When we think about governance tools, Neri has already mentioned that government tend to be poor and without a lot of resources in trying to implement those regulations and so on. So what I mean, when you're comparing the U.S., Europe, and China in terms of how legal tools are used, do you think any lessons China could learn from the other two countries, or the other two countries can learn from China in terms of governance tools? What can be used, to be more effectively addressing AI risks?
Yes. Since May 2025, the global pendulum has swung toward AI development over safety. Take the US. The home passed the HR1 Act, banning state or local AI regulations for a decade. Japan and Korea greenlit the laws turbocharging AI R&D. Even the EU Commission now plan to delay the Safety First AI Act, with multiple leaders calling for post countdown mechanisms. This shift forces a tough question once again to the global stage. Can we dodge the Klingery dilemma? So I think that that's why we think 3 to 5 years AI governance and legislation will become a global imperative, demanding urgent international attention and cooperation. The UN and its agencies offer a platform for diverse voices. Exactly well, we should seek a broadest consensus on AI governance. In 2024 alone, the UN adopted 3 key resolutions. Number 1, the resolution on safer and trustworthy AI. Number 2, the resolution on international cooperation for AI capacity building. Number 3, the Pact for the Future, including Global Digital Compact. Actually, how make this 2024 UN resolutions work is now the immediate priority for global AI governance. Giving here first AI revolves and how widely it's used, giving the transformative impact on humanity. We likely need a specialized agency like International Atomic Energy Agency for AI. So I think that such a body could tackle AI risks head-on, set concrete international rules and standards, enforce compliance globally.
Okay, thank you. Neri, you have...
Yeah, well, yes, I'd like to pick up on something that came out from the previous panel and this panel, which is Stuart Russell proposed to us that it should be hardware that's regulated, but Professor Hu noted the geopolitical tensions in the world and the lack of cooperation. And I just wonder, from these experts, which I am not, whether trying to regulate hardware is more likely to intensify geopolitical tensions. And Craig mentions the software solutions. And, you know, Craig, you've been there and done that, finding global standards on software. Is that a way, in your software version of AI creating this audit trail, would that make it possible for every country to have their own AI model doing that, and for there to be competition among countries on whose model does it best, or would it require one standard model for the whole world? I wondered if it was a solution to the geopolitical problem.
There's one consideration that guides toward, one choice over the other. If the countries, let's just say a coalition of the willing, decided to collaborate to build a single instance of this thing, then that actually gives those countries a common basis of trust in terms of what's reported or audited and fed back. If each country builds their own, I think it continues to promote the current trend toward isolationism. And isolation over time, as the AI becomes more pervasive in all aspects of sort of life and work, I think will push us toward autarky. And if we go down that path, that's known to create instability in the long term. So I think one reason to try to get a coalition of countries and companies together to build at least a first instance of a common, I'll call it adjudication and auditing system, is it provides information back. It provides some semblance of governance in the short term, and it might help to reverse the trend toward isolationism in the construction of these products. One of the advantages of doing it that way is that the natural competition, which everybody has talked about and is the reason that they're walking backwards on all of the regulatory activities, is no one wants to fall behind. And the fear of missing out or falling behind is driving everybody towards saying, I need to control my own technology. If you have an AI that can observe any other AI, much like our legal systems and our justice systems, they observe people and their behaviors. They don't go in our head and try to fix our head. They just look at what we do as people, and then they take some action. I think we're better off to learn from what we've done with humans and recognize that they won't all be perfect, but we're better off to start to try to at least observe their behaviors and take action based on that in the short term. That would allow us to make progress on the cybersecurity problem. It would allow us to learn a lot about how these systems are being deployed again with all these new applications. It might allow us to feed back information to the AIs themselves when we see them moving in a direction which we worry about, but may not yet be an existential risk. But the thing I worry about the most is if the headlong push to artificial intelligence deployment pushes us further toward isolation between countries or regions, then I think we're moving farther and farther away from a cooperative solution and a return to more natural trading arrangements and interaction. And so that's what's led my own thinking to say it's better to go find a combination of companies who are making these products and some governments who together would agree to build one monitoring system that they could all deploy, because it doesn't have any effect on anybody else's development. It just allows feedback and observation to occur in a unified way. That transparency may lead toward more comfort in general, and could lead us to a solution, or at least away from a solution that tends to be trending toward long-term autarky.
Thanks very much, Craig. I'm mindful that we've only got 1 minute, a bit more left, and I wanted to other panelists to just very briefly, give us some advice on what do you think, are the the one specific recommendation or strategic shift we need to move the global governance of AI in the right direction. You've already identified some of the problems and challenges and so on. So what's needed in your view? Just one very short one recommendation. I think maybe Craig has already mentioned his one, but I wanted others to mention. Yeah.
I want to take the lead. The former panelists discuss about the role of the government and the role of the industry, like the big companies like China Telecom, Microsoft, and Alibaba. So in my point of view is that how we try to solve the problem that AI will bring us, we need to solve it from a multi-dimensional point of view. It's not a single, there is no silver bullet. And we need to do it in a multi-layer, multi-tier, multi-dimensional way. We need to cooperate with many aspects, but industry comes first because we have the data, we have the application scenario, and we are the real player in this game. So if we have something in common that comes from our practice, then becomes the regulation, the legal issue from the regulator, from the government, then that's the common interests, at least in certain area, like in China, in EU, or in the United States. And what reminds me is that the regulation must encourage the use of AI, but not the opposite one. So that's my point.
Yeah, 非常简要的。
Yes, very briefly.
Okay, any other comments on this one? Okay.
The only thing I would add is I worry that trying to get all countries to agree on one standard will take too much time and be too difficult at this moment. And so a halfway house...
But I didn't say all.
No, a coalition. A halfway house would be a system of mutual recognition where you at least recognize that each other's models are doing the right thing, and then you have a community of academics, of companies, of governments underneath working to catch up with their cooperation to join that.
Okay. 其他有没有啊？
I think that the Beijing consensus on AI safety signed in 2024 presents the technological approach to AI governance. So I think that the problem, my core to the governments and the industry is that transition AI governance from ethic-centric model to a tech procedure framework, invest more in AI safety R&D itself. And let technical and procedure fairness safeguard legal procedure justice, or ultimately achieving higher moral principles in AI governance.
Okay.
Just one point.
Yeah.
We can learn from Potsdam Proclamation 80 years ago today. The Potsdam Proclamation was signed by China, United States, and UK. And now, the world faced post-stem progression moment for AI development. Why? 80 years ago, we faced the danger, submitted power want to take over the control. And now, as Professor Hinden taught, the digital intelligence may take over the world. So we should put post-stem proclamation spirit into AI development. What's the core of post-stem proclamation? It's sharing. Sharing power, sharing wisdom, Eastern or Western, Asian or modern, ITs or laws. So if we do this, we can make AI more good, good for people, to propel the common history of humankind in the era of digital intelligence. That's all. Thank you.
下面有没有什么
？Anything else?
The industry, academia, and the government should be collaborate. My strongly recommendation is to the industry because I'm from industry. From the short term, my strong recommendation is we should make specific budget for the AI governance. Specific budget. No budget, no action. From the long term, I strongly recommend all the companies, we should pay more efforts on the open source because open source makes the AI move fast. But we also should put more attention for the open source governance or security. Yes.
Well, thank you very much. I think we are in the negative zone of the time, so I invite the audience to join us to thank all the panelists. Thank you. 好，谢谢各位。好。
Thank you very much. Next, we enter the next item in our agenda. To advance the development of global AI safety, the China AI Safety and Development Association has entrusted the China Academy of Information and Communications Technology to lead, in collaboration with member institutions including China Center for Information Industry Development, Shanghai University, Shanghai Qizhi Institute, Shanghai Lab, and participating enterprises to formulate the China AI Security and Safety Commitment Framework. This framework, now officially released, presents a governance solution embodying Chinese wisdom to the world. Next, I welcome the members of the China AI Safety and Development Association and representatives of the Chinese enterprises onto the stage to share and interpret the AI Security and Safety Commitment Framework with us. Let's give a warm round of applause to Yu Xiaohui, President of CAICT, President of CCID Zhang Li, Associate Dean of the Institute for Interdisciplinary Information Sciences at Tsinghua University, Xu Wei, Co-Head of the Center for Safe and Trustworthy AI, Shanghai AI Lab 3, Wang Yingchun, Vice President of China Telecom, Liu Ying, Chairman of Baidu Technical Committee, Chen Shangyi, and Vice President of Minimax, Peng Tao. Please take your seats. Next, first I give the floor to Academy Dean Yu Xiaohui to share with us a backdrop of the revision and the core content of the framework. Thank you very much, distinguished Ambassador Fu, moderator, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'm honored to be speaking as a member representative of the association. And I also would like to thank all walks of life for your attention and support for the realization of the framework. to keep up with international trends, seize opportunity in AI development, and jointly tackle the challenges brought forth by technical revolution. To actively implement the Global AI Governance Initiative, we, together with our coalition in December last year, we've pulled in our wisdom where we have initiated the commitment on AI safety and security. We had 17 AI enterprises signing with us as a first batch, showing our determination and our responsibility on promoting AI safety and security. And the commitment would mainly focus on risk management mechanism, model, data, infrastructure security, model transportation, and frontier security. Ever since its inception, it has received great attention. On February 2025, on Paris AI Action Summit, we, as a member unit of the CNAISDA, we have shared the safety practices on China AI during the summit, where we had also shared with the world the safety and security commitment of AI. And in ITO in Geneva, we have also conducted in-depth exchanges with our counterparts. We have received many active responses. Right now, we have a total number of 22 companies signing with the commitment, where 18 companies have followed the commitment in the disclosure of the information. Right now, we have around 43 items to be disclosed, and over time, there will be more items to be disclosed. And we are really taking actions, and we're walking the walk to really implement the governance on the safety and security of AI. As we know, the technology is developing at a faster speed. We are deepening our work and building on the consensus together with the member units of CNAISDA, where we have upgraded and updated the commitment. And we're now publishing the AI safety and security commitment framework, and we are leading the work where we have made 2 revisions to. Firstly, we have added commitment number 7, where we will step up our international cooperation on safety and security governance to promote AI for good and inclusive AI. And secondly, we have updated the content on commitment number 6 on frontier AI security and safety content to prevent safety risks. We are now publishing the framework on this main forum to build greater consensus of all experts. As a next step, we'll continue to take the lead to concert our efforts, to pull in our wisdom, to deepen our work on disclosure, and to work on building better norms and standardization, testing and validation. And we hope in the future, CNAISDA will continue to share with the world China's solution on safety and security governance of AI to promote the AI's development, to empower and to be beneficial to AI and build community of shared future for mankind. Thank you very much, Ms. Dean Yu Xiaohui. Indeed, it is the framework has consistently been grounded in the vision of national strategic priorities, demonstrating China's commitment to global AI governance. Next, I give the floor to Zhang Li, member representative of the Association, president of CCID, to elaborate on the strategic significance of the framework. Ladies and gentlemen, dear experts, good afternoon. Today, we jointly witness the launch of the AI Security and Safety Commitment Framework. It is a pivotal initiative by the China Network for AI Development and Safety Association that aligns with national strategies in response to global demands for AI governance. At the 20th collective study session of the Politburo of the 60th Central Committee, General Secretary Xi Jinping emphasized that we must uphold self-reliance and self-strengthening, prioritizing an application-oriented approach and guide China's AI development towards beneficial, secure, and equitable growth. China has consistently been a proactive advocate for global AI governance. From President Xi Jinping's Global AI Governance Initiative, which champions people-oriented and AI for good principles, to the implementation of the Chinese technological solutions in the UN. Our nation remains committed to open collaboration. Recent examples include the June 24th Longjiang flood in Guizhou province, where an AI-powered early warning system protected lives by integrating satellite remote sensing, hydrological monitoring, and predictive models of AI to identify affected areas 72 hours in advance, enabling orderly evacuations. Rescue drones demonstrated technological empathy. While achieving 95% search and rescue accuracy, they innovatively featured a privacy-preserving mode that automatically will blur the faces and the facial features of the rescued individuals with medical data transmitted through blockchain encryption. And in healthcare, China's AI-driven multi-cancer early screening technology has served 9 countries in the world, 20 million people in the world. And through strategic cooperation with the WHO Digital Health and Collaboration Center, we are extending solutions to developing regions, especially cutting-edge solutions to developing regions that's suffering from unequal medical resources or insufficient medical resources. The launch of the framework today marks another contribution from China to the world, especially in the global vision of shared governance and benefits. High-quality development stands as the foremost priority in the new era, with AI security and safety serving as its cradle enabler. The AI security and safety commitment framework holds strategic significance for advancing global AI along a high-quality trajectory. The framework drives progress through 3 interconnected dimensions. Firstly, strengthening development control by institutionalizing security risk management mechanisms, conducting rigorous model security testing, and advanced R&D in data infrastructure security technologies will ensure the stability and reliability of AI applications. Secondly, enhancing development efficiency through transparent model governance frameworks and cutting-edge security research, which bolsters technological credibility while fostering innovation capabilities. Thirdly, optimizing development ecosystems, leveraging international collaboration, it promotes the ethical and inclusive deployment of AI technologies, creating a foundation for sustainable prosperity in the global digital economy. Dear friends, the AI security and safety commitment framework marks not just a milestone in China's AI governance, but also a solemn practice of our commitment to building a community with a shared future for mankind. Let's steer AI development with security as our compass and innovation as our sail, ensuring that AI becomes an enduring engine for the progress of human civilization. Thank you. Thank you, Dean Zhang Li. Next, I give the floor to Professor Xu Wei to share with us insights from the perspective of industry, academia, research collaboration.
First of all, it gives me great pleasure to be able to launch the framework. I am a technical personnel, and for technicians, maybe people think that we're doing a lot of solid researches, but we really need guiding documents to tell us the direction of development for technology. In this framework, we have included many aspects. For example, for testing, data, infrastructure, security, transparency, cutting-edge research, and international cooperation. I think that for each and every one of these aspects, there are technical issues. For example, as technicians, just like the previous panel said, we need to do quite a lot of testing. In cutting-edge researchers, we have to understand the security and safety issues over the short and a long-term run and their nature. This is different from systematic safety as well as cybersecurity, but it is also intertwined with these elements. And the interface with human is also quite frequent. Unlike security of information, it's something that you cannot see. But for AI security and risks, it is directly you can see it directly in your interaction with them. So for universities as well as people working in the technology sector, we really need to educate the public, and such education is an important job for us. How people should interact with AI. When you use AI, will you as we say it, lose the critical thinking ability? You would just simply believe what AI tells you. So be it for educational purpose or for technology development purpose, there are quite a lot of things that we can do. And we also need to develop and cultivate high caliber talents for research and engineering. So the companies have committed to building teams of safety. So the products and the talents that we develop, they will have the buyers, they will have the market, and as a result, we will have better talent in return. So universities will support implementation of the framework, and we would like to offer our congratulations on its launch. Thank you. Thank you, Professor Xu Wei. Next, we would like to invite Director Wang Yingchun from the Shanghai AI Lab. I'm very glad to join the launch of this framework. It reflects the social responsibility of the companies as well as research institutes here in China. It also speaks volume of the importance of safety and security, and the industries in China are not just advocating these ideas, but also taking actions. We are a new type of research institute. We focus on the security and safety of AI. It's one of our most important research directions. We have already established possibly the largest interdisciplinary team in AI safety and security for inference, ethics, as well as many other issues. We are also working together with many companies. Last year, our director also put forward the 45 degrees law of balance. We hope that we can coordinate between development and safety. As a research institute, we sincerely hope that we can provide industries with safe and trustworthy technology guarantees and service support. For example, we can work together on safe and trustworthy AI's evaluation systems. We would be able to refine the current risk and safety evaluation, bridge the gaps, and build a more science-based mechanisms. And such evaluation system can also be engineerized and industrialized and serve as a platform so that it is a larger scale public service platform. We can co-develop this. And thirdly, by leveraging on the launch of the framework, I think an important addition to the framework is international cooperation. We should advance international cooperation in AI governance. People may have different ideas, philosophies, and understandings which should be translated into concrete indicators and standards. We can build together some shared platforms for safety evaluations, and one assessment can lead to mutual recognition, maybe among international organizations, countries, scientists, and companies. We need quite a lot of public service platforms to do that. Today marks a very good starting point. There are many things that we can do. Thank you, Mr. Wang. Next, we will ask Liu Ying, Deputy General Manager of China Telecom, and Chen Shaoyi, Chairman of Baidu Technology Committee, and Peng Tao from Minimax to share their ideas on how we're going to implement this framework. Dear experts, it is really an honor for me to represent China Telecom in the launch of the framework. As many of the experts have just discussed, AI is bringing many benefits to human beings, but we need to guide its development. AI is reshaping our industrial paradigm and social governance. At the same time, it's imperative for all sectors to understand the trend and the laws of AI and accelerate the development of safe, reliable, and controllable AI governance system. China Telecom have fully embraced AI and carried out the strategic upgrade of cloud transformation, digital transition. With network as the foundation, the cloud as the core, and AI as the direction, the security as the bottom line, we are committed to tackling core technologies of AI and implementing the AI Plus initiative. China Telecom has adhered to the principle that security is the prerequisite for development. We are dedicated to building high-level AI security guarantee system to promote the coordinated evolution of technological development and risk governance. We have established an AI security architecture that integrates computing power-based security, algorithm model security, data security, and application security. We have also launched the Chenmo data aggregation, high-quality, secure corpus data, and improved the precision of model attack identification. We have developed security large models, and we have developed the first open-source, deeply localized Chinese context large model security guardrail. And in tomorrow's special forum for China Telecom, we will present these achievements. We discussed just now that safety and security of AI still presents many unknown areas. So open collaboration is the only way to ensure the secure development of AI. We want to work with partners in the ecosystem to build the security capacities of intelligent transformation. We integrate into global governance, we participate in the formulation of international standards, and we work with scholars to promote inclusive, fair, trustworthy AI governance system. In the future, we will continue to upgrade AI security architecture, and we will strengthen our technical monitor, risk warning, and emergency response so that we can build trustworthy AI security ecosystem. Finally, I would like to thank the CNAISDA for the contributions to the launch of the framework. China Telecom will fulfill its commitments and contribute our own wisdom and the Chinese solution in the development of AI. Thank you. Thank you, Professor Xue. Distinguished guests, experts, leaders, good afternoon. It gives me great pleasure, like Professor Xue said, I come from a big internet company, and I would like to share with you our practice in AI governance. I listened to Mr. Yu and Mr. Zhang's interpretation of the framework, which gives me a better understanding and deeper understanding of the contents of this framework. Ever since last year, actually, we are one of the 17 mentioned by Mr. Yu to initiate this framework. I represent Baidu back then, and I felt this heavy burden and the heightened sense of mission. I think the launch of the framework fully represents the coordination among different sectors and our aspiration to ensure safe and security and the determination to do so. As an AI company, as Madame Liu said, we would like to thank CNAISDA and our partners. We pay tribute to you and thank you for your efforts in AI safety so that this framework can be launched and implemented. I would also like to take this opportunity to share what Baidu has been doing in this aspect. Like many companies, we have established AI safety task force. We looked at business procedures and developed multidimensional teams for evaluation and governance. Technology, data, personal information, security are areas where we have developed our capacity and risk identification. We established multi-tiered, specialized red teaming evaluation teams and cover all infrastructure, supply chain, algorithms, and applications, etc. In some critical nodes, we have got systematic red teaming testing so as to improve the safety of these models. We also have zero trust, all asset, whole process, trustworthy computing, whole chain safety evaluation, safety mechanisms, including corpus training data, governance data, fine-tuning, commissioning, as well as private data, basically the whole life cycle. We have also established integrated safety testing and a defense system. So we will simulate different kinds of risks and hazards to solidify our emergency response so that we can have better operation, testing, the attack, and the defense can both have better qualities. Baidu has participated in global dialogues for AI governance. We work with governments, academia, international organizations, and share our risk identification, evaluation, and the control practices and experience. Technology must be used for the good for all so that everyone can have access to the benefits of AI technology. Finally, in AI safety and security, Baidu's practice have been incorporated in our corporate culture, and it penetrates our technology R&D. It shows our social responsibility. We made the solemn commitment that we will use open attitude, stringent standards to build a safe, trustworthy, and reliable future of AI. Thank you. Next, Mr. Peng. Dear experts, colleagues, it gives him a great honor to attend the launch of the framework for Minimax in December last year. With the guidance of the Coalition and Alliance for AI Development, together with other 17 AI companies, we signed this framework and also made quite a lot of practice. In July of this year, we participated in the disclosure of the achievements of this framework. We are very glad to see the global launch of this framework. I'm really excited. It means that more and more companies, the general public, are understanding the importance of developing and security. The self-discipline will give rise to trustworthiness, and safety will bring more innovation. The framework focuses on self-discipline. It's a systematic Chinese solution for AI safety. The risk control must penetrate the whole process of R&D. The framework is a consensus of the industries. With transparency and cross-border collaboration, the technology for good for all can become a reality. And this framework also demonstrates Chinese companies' sense of responsibility for the progress of human civilization. In the era of AI, this is our solemn response. And for Minimax, we have some practices in practicing safety and security. Development and safety receive dual emphasis in our company. We are among the first batch of companies that fired records for our LLMs. And we have always used LLM for the better and the well-being of people. Ever since we signed the framework, we looked at all the 7 commitments and further strengthened our safety governance in 3 aspects.
Firstly, we would always refer to institutional building to build a solid foundation. So firstly, on the basis of being a part of the AI Safety Governance Committee, we are also building that into an institutional framework. So for any heads that's in charge of AI safety and security in the company, they all need to sign a guarantee ensuring that they support AI safety and security. So this is a top-down approach which goes all the way to the frontline colleagues in our company. And secondly, we also have a risk management system that's going to cover the full process, and this is a dynamic monitoring process and management process. Secondly, we would also look at a practical approach to improve our capabilities. So we have many scenarios and red team tests to improve the robustness. In recent years, we are looking at our businesses. We're developing multi-modality models and testing, and the adversarial tests and verification. And also, we have built a system of data security system to ensure that we do not have data leakage, to provide the privacy. Thirdly, we have always believed in promoting AI development. And we have always been engaging in the development of the value of the AI to make sure that it is beneficial, that it is AI for good. We are also looking at the limitation of AI development. We aim to improve our transparency to win the public support in the company. Finally, as a company that's in the industry of AI, I call on my counterparts. AI is developing towards a direction that's more complicated, with more responsibility that's the way that we can go forward. As a first batch of company that has signed on the commitment, Minimax calls on all our peers to follow through with these principles and ideas to promote the AI ecosystem development, to build a sound AI ecosystem development so that we can provide Chinese wisdom and paradigm to the solution to the problem. Thank you. Thank you very much for allowing us to have a better understanding. From your perspective, it also allows us to have a better understanding of the content and the implementation of the framework. So please take your seats. Now we enter the next session. Next, I invite the representatives from China, CNAISDA, and enterprises of the framework onto the stage. They're representatives from China Mobile, China Telecom, Alibaba, Baidu, Stanford, Qianxin, iFly Tech, SenseTime, Vivo, Minimax, 01, All Things Technology, 4 Prime Time, and Beer Technology. Please find your position on the stage. Great. Now, right. I invite the representatives on stage. Welcome. Dear representatives, please sign on the screen. Let's jointly witness this important moment. Great. Thank you for signing. Ladies and gentlemen, let's use a warm round of applause to congratulate on the launch of AI Safety and Security Commitment Framework. Thank you very much. Please take your seats. Thank you. The release and signing of the AI Security and Safety Commitment Framework marks a significant step in China's promotion of global AI safety governance. We look forward to laying a solid security and safety foundation for the development of AI through concerted efforts of everyone. Today, leading experts, scholars, and representatives from different industries have gathered to engage in profound discussion on AI development and safety and security. These insightful exchanges forge meaningful consensus. We believe these collective insights will positively promote the safe, secure, reliable, and controllable development of AI globally. China AI Safety and Development Association will continue to work with our peers home and abroad to explore a future that balances development, safety, security, and fairness of AI. With this, I announce the conclusion of the forum AI Safety, Practical Applications, and Frontier Progress. Finally, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to all participants, and I look forward to see you again next year.